It's easier to scroll than it is to read. It's difficult to prioritize reading above, say, watching TV. It's easy to scan through comments and online content, but quite difficult to focus on a worthy book or article. Here are some thoughts on why reading is hard and what to do about it. Reading requires presence of mind. It's impossible to simultaneously read and think. To some degree or another, we are all plagued by our own unconscious mental noise. But reading requires you to first be silent. This is partly why people find it difficult to read. Secondly, your emotions affect your focus. Notice that it's difficult to read when you're angry. It's difficult to read when you're emotionally unsettled. And it's difficult to do anything when you're grief-stricken. This is why emotional work is so important. Watching TV, scrolling and surfing doesn't require the same level of presence and emotional equanimity that reading does. As a side note, scanning through comments and short messages doesn't count as reading. This type of behavior often serves as an avoidance of our inner turmoil. It's an escape from presence. So how do we achieve equanimity and consequently better focus? Recognize and embrace that which you do not want to feel. Stay with the discomfort. Try to do this for a set amount of time before you escape by grabbing your phone or making tea or whatever else. Do this daily. One can improve the skill of containment over time. You wouldn't attempt to run a marathon without any training, and you wouldn't attempt to play a complex piano sonata if you can hardly play something simple. So don't read a difficult novel before you learn to finish easy ones. Start with something instructional. For example, try a how-to book, or if you would rather read fiction, read something short, a short story or a children's book. I'm not joking, I recently reread some old favorites from childhood, and if you've not trained your attention to focus on long winding paragraphs, you might very well need to read something simple and short to build some confidence. If you don't understand a word, look it up. This seems like an obvious principle, but one that I didn't always adhere to. Back in the day when I was a lazy reader, I didn't always want to waste time looking up words. I wanted to finish books, not really spend time reading them. Presence wasn't my central commitment back then. Not a great mindset for deep comprehension. Shift your mindset from being goal-orientated to being deeply present for every step. Every word counts when presence becomes more important than the finish line. When I started writing fiction more than a decade ago, I really learned to read. Of course, I'd been reading my entire life before that point, but I'd never really worked on understanding every aspect of a scene or a paragraph, especially long descriptions. But writing well requires one to understand all aspects of storytelling, and that includes understanding descriptions on a deeper level than merely having a stick figure idea of what's going on in the story. Take something like Lord of the Rings, for instance. At times, this classic has pages and pages of descriptive writing. The novel becomes tedious if you have to slog through these descriptions without having a clear idea of what's going on. If we only read for the dialogue, the novel becomes one-dimensional. Conversely, if we can read the descriptive parts with deep comprehension, everything comes alive. Learning to read this way is challenging, but it can be done. So how do we ensure that we understand all aspects of a sentence, paragraph, or page? We reread until we have total clarity of each sentence. This takes time. If a book is particularly challenging, we might spend 10 minutes on the first page. But that doesn't matter because we're aiming for depth of understanding, not finishing books quickly. Why? Because it is depth of understanding that holds the substance, not the fact that we can say that we finished the book quickly. Remember, you are primarily reading for yourself. You are reading to improve your thinking, your focus, your life. You're not reading to impress others. So learn to read and reread until each sentence, paragraph, and page makes total sense. Ask questions. What does this mean? How does this look? You might even decide to draw a few pictures of descriptive passages. These are things that really aid comprehension. Not everyone wants to become a writer. That said, just a little bit of consistent writing will make you a master reader. So even if you don't consider yourself a writer, but you really want to become a better reader, consider writing just a few paragraphs every day. The first time that you attempt this will be hard. You will sit down at your desk and everything that comes to mind will seem like muffled nonsense. You will feel utterly inadequate and pathetic. Don't despair. Persist. Show up no matter what. Spend more time reading good writing than reading bad writing. This too seems obvious, but it's not so obvious when we're just starting to read more. We might not have a clear idea of what's good or bad, but we should realize that not all books are worth the effort. Abandon books if it doesn't inspire awe and interest. That's not to say that we can't learn things from bad writing. Bad writing gives us a clear idea of what doesn't work. It gives us great contrast to the good stuff. But as a rule, we should aim to spend much more time with well-written books.